What if I told you that more than $6 million in annual scholarships are awarded to youth bowlers each season? To me, $6 million is absolutely crazy to think about. And you guys probably didn't even know that bowlers get scholarship money for bowling good or even having good leadership in tournaments or even leagues. I believe everyone should at least know some history about bowling and how it came about and all the different variations of bowling because who doesn't love going bowling with family and friends and just have fun? And that's why today I'm going to give you guys the knowledge of bowling and how it came about along with the different variations of bowling that the world has. So let me ask you guys something else. Did you know that bowling is a sport that predates the Roman Empire, Jesus Christ, or even the first Olympics held in 776 BC? I didn't even know that. And when I found that out, I was shocked and surprised. So in 1930, a British anthropologist discovered materials that looked like bowling balls and bowling pins in a child's grave in Egypt. To me, knowing that bowling pins and bowling balls were invented in a child's grave is creepy. So researchers say bowling was invented anywhere between 3200 BC to 5200 BC. So no one actually really knows when bowling was invented. But they do know that it all started when the ancient Egyptians rolled stones at various objects with the whole goal of knocking the objects down. To me, that's so crazy how just rolling stones at random objects started the whole concept of bowling. Then bowling became a thing in Germany. In Germany, around 300 AD, they would typically carry kegels, which are wooden pin-shaped rods and used for sports and protection. They believed that knocking down the kegels with a rock would pardon their sins. Then in the 1300s, bowling became a thing in England. And in 1366, King Henry III ended up banning bowling from England because he says it was a distraction from archery practice for the soldiers. King Henry III unbanned bowling in the 1400s, but then sadly banned it again in 1500 because he didn't want the lower class to be able to bowl. He wanted to turn bowling into a sport only for the wealthy. Then finally in the 1670s, bowling was brought to America by the British, German, and Dutch settlers. The first known evidence of bowling was in North America, and it was actually here in New York, which is pretty cool to think about. When it was brought to America, it was mainly just a men's sport, and women were not allowed in the American Bowling Congress League. In 1907, there was finally a national women's tournament, and that tournament was what led to get women into the American Bowling Congress League in 1917. Now in 2020, bowling is open for men and women, even though there are still a lot of tournaments that are just allowed for women or just allowed for men. So you guys probably think bowling is just a typical 10-pin bowling you see on TV or you see when you go to a bowling alley. But believe it or not, there are a lot of different variations of bowling. There is the typical 10-pin bowling that you guys all probably know, 9-pin bowling, candlepin bowling, and duckpin bowling. This is a picture of the modern 10-pin bowling. 10-pin bowling was the first variation invented along with 9-pin bowling in the 1830s. You're all probably very familiar with this type of bowling because you honestly can't tell me you haven't gone bowling with your friends or family or been in a bowling alley before. So here's what 9-pin bowling looks like. You can see that there are only 9 pins. 9-pin bowling was actually very more popular than 10-pin bowling in the United States till the early 19th century. You can see the red pin in the picture that's in the middle has a very big meaning when it comes to scoring. In 9-pin bowling, there's only 6 frames, where in 10-pin it has 10 frames. 9-pin bowling is not very popular in the United States at all anymore, besides in Texas. The next variation of bowling that was invented is candlepin bowling. Candlepin bowling was invented in 1880s. As you can see in the picture, candlepin bowling looks quite different than 10-pin and 9-pin bowling. Candlepin bowling pins are very tall, narrow, and resembles candles, hence the name candlepin. And the bowling ball you use in candlepin bowling is actually a handheld sized ball about the size of a bocce ball. The other big difference is after you take your first shot, the falling pins are not cleared away between balls and you get 3 throws instead of just 2. The final variation of bowling that I will be showing you guys is called duckpin bowling. Duckpin bowling was invented shortly after candlepin bowling was in 1895. Duckpin bowling is different than candlepin bowling in that the pins are shorter and bigger around than the pins used in candlepin bowling, and they are more closely resemble the pins in 10-pin bowling. The ball that used in duckpin is slightly larger and heavier than the ball in candlepin bowling. Unlike the 2 rolls per frame allowed in 10-pin bowling, duckpin bowlers are allowed to use 3 rolls per frame, just as they are in candlepin. So in this picture, you can see the difference in pins and bowling balls used in the different variations of bowling. So in candlepin bowling and duckpin, they're like the same size bowling balls. Then in 10-pin bowling, it's way larger than candlepin and duckpin. And then all the pins are way different at each variation. So besides being a fun sport, whether you bowl with your friends or bowl for competition, the added scholarship opportunities are a great perk for those who are part of youth bowling. I can tell you from experience that it was very useful for me when I first started college. I started earning scholarship money from youth bowling and tournaments around the age 5. Now I am 22 years old and a junior in college and entering my last year as a collegiate bowler. Besides the scholarship I earned through the years as a bowler, I am also receiving a scholarship to bowl here at Roberts. Since its discovery around 5200 BC, bowling has evolved to be so much more than just entertainment.